first introduction to humanitarian work was through my father, who was with the American Red Cross. I think his humanitarian work overseas and in the United States made an impact on me. I went into the U.S. military at the end of the Vietnam War, and after about 5 years had an opportunity to get into U.S. Army Special Forces. I think primarily because I believed in the motto, which was to free the oppressed. In 2004, when I first came here, I worked as a video cameraman on a mobile medical team as an orientation. I didn't really have a good background, except for I knew that they were an ethnic group, a hill tribe that was being oppressed by a dictatorship in Burma. I came back from that orientation to the United States. As soon as I arrived in the United States, I got an email from a friend of mine over here. The report was of a Burmese infantry battalion that was operating just south of where we were. And the report profiled the attack of this village. And what this battalion did to the women in that village was so horrific that I won't repeat it. But I'd say that it haunts me to this day. And so I made a decision. To come to this region and try to help.
Bây giờ cái chia đến đây mẹ bây giờ
The first program that we think is most important is a program that supports orphans from the war zone. We feel that program is important because these children are the most innocent of all who have been orphaned by war. The second program that we think is equally compelling is support to blinded landmine amputees. They're presently in the main refugee camp in Thailand. The thing that's unfortunate about this program is that another NGO that was the primary funder covering these costs has decided that it's no longer going to fund the program. And so as of this December, it will be unfunded except for what we're able to contribute. Third program that we actively support is the Karen Health and Welfare Department. We have focused on trying to support their training programs through providing stipends to volunteer medics that are working in the primary conflict zone. If the Karen people don't have their health, then they can't last very long. And so this is for the survival of the Karen and Northern Karen State, this Health and Welfare Department program is critically important. The fourth area of interest for us is in human rights reporting. The intent is to try to empower these human rights reporters to cover atrocities, crimes against humanity being perpetrated by the Burmese army. The Karen actually were some of the original inhabitants of Burma, going back 2,000 years. So some of the original people who settled the region. They have the longest running revolutions or insurgencies in the world, going back to 1940-49. Many of these ethnic groups' ancestral lands contain natural resources that are in great abundance. So they've been persecuted because their lands are so strategically important and so economically important. So in very simple terms, these ethnic minorities have been discriminated against and have been brutalized and oppressed really ever since the end of World War II. I remember entering a Karen base camp when I was first here in 2004, and over the entrance to the base camp was the sign that said, "Live free or die." And that really, I think, captures the essence of the Karen people, this dogged determination, the ones that stay on in Karen State and fight against hopeless odds just to protect their village, their simple village way of life. This fundamental idea of the rights of all men, just to be free, is just powerfully demonstrated day to day with these people. When I was a kid, my grandmother, the famous quote from her was, "Do what is right and never fear the consequences." When I first came over to 5th Brigade in 2005, I'd crossed over this first mountain range and When I got to the bottom of it, I was just exhausted. I mean, I couldn't have walked another foot. And so they put me up in this old farmer's hut, and he had 2 little boys there. Couldn't have been, 8 or 9 years old. And so I laid up there the whole day, just collecting myself. And I got up at nightfall, took my guide and headed off to go over the second mountain range. And we'd gone, only a few minutes, and I hear this little pitter-patter of feet. These 2 little boys ran up behind me, and I turned around, and before I could say anything, one of them stuck out this bag and put it in my hands, and they took off and ran away. And what it was is I had left a bag of raisins in the hut. Now these kids were malnourished, and what struck me so powerfully was just this idea of just doing the right thing. And I've never forgotten that, those 2 little boys just doing the right thing. The fundamental nature of people is good, and these 2 little boys just brought that home so powerfully. Just a bag of raisins. It's interesting that you asked the question about, why go so far away from home to help others when you have compelling need in your own backyard. In fact, I have relatives who ask me the same question, who really don't agree with my focusing so far away from home. I remember a quote, it was part of the U.S. national security strategy a number of years ago, and it said this. It said, "Liberty in our land depends on liberty in other lands." And I would say that it's a responsibility of America to make stands for liberty wherever we're inspired to do so. That's a responsibility that we have. Somebody has to champion that. Somebody has to make that stand. And it has to be individuals who believe in the fundamental rights of men, regardless of where they are. If nothing else, the bullying of innocence is reason enough to be here and to stay here and to do whatever is possible. On top of that, I cannot turn a blind eye to the fact that many of these ethnic groups were our faithful allies in the Second World War, and we abandoned them. You can call it what you want, but they died for our freedom. They never got freedom. We did. We left, and we left them in the lurch. Well, the Kren, they're not good at talking about themselves. They're not inclined to. So somebody has to be able to tell their story in a compelling way using all the different social media and multimedia and powerfully to get it across, because these people have a good news story that needs to be told. And, they could use some help in that effort. Na utu yori na kadone la krika topa o musosi goni ne yuago o kate kato na risa kato
Wa ke le poto te nya so Ka te ka toki na ta umu Saki ka heki robu toli O mu tamba yo takuni Ka te toki na ta umu Saki ka heki robu toli O mu tamba yo takuni Damu tu yodi na ka done La kri ka topa O mu sotsi Boni ne yo ago O ka te ka to Na ri sa ka to O wa ke le poto te nya so Ka te ka toki na ta umu Saki ka heki rohu toli O mu tama yo takuni Damu tu yodi na ka done La kri ka topa